what happened is ministers and people of Groundwork, which is there's a different group called Groundwork, which is Unitarian anti-racist organizers, and just send out messages to ministers across the country saying, preach on it, ask your people to come to Arizona, ask them to get arrested, and it just became like a huge wave of action where a lot of people really threw down leading up. So that's one thing, the slow groundwork, but then recognize when you've got a moment and jump on it, right? Another thing, and the other key thing, did she do the 5 already?
No, I'm going to give you the 1 in a second.
Oh, you're giving me the 1. Oh, God. So, okay, I can say this briefly. I will say, assume in coalition building, and in this work in particular, it's really important to assume the best of intentions, right? It's hard work. It's not easy. But also, don't assume anything else. So don't assume that you have the same information. Don't assume you have the same training or knowledge about the situation as the people that you're asking to do work. And the one story I'll tell about this is that there was a lot of frustration I felt on a few sides of what was going to happen, what were the Unitarians going to do, because there was this consistent ask. One side felt like they were consistently asking for civil disobedience and direct action, and then that they didn't know that it was going to happen. But it occurred to some of us that maybe Unitarians don't know how to just... Oh, I'm talking too fast. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Okay, so I'm just trying to fit it in. So maybe not everybody knows how to just throw down for civil disobedience, right? That's a very specialized skill. And so Chris and I jumped in and talked with Emrys, who was organizing, awesome, organizing a bunch of Unitarians who were coming in out of town, and offered a civil disobedience, nonviolent direct action training. Offered some pathways, offered to organize, kind of design the action so that people could just fit into it. And it was kind of this turning point in the conversation where instead of one side feeling like they were making really clear demands and the other side feeling like they were trying to meet them, it was just like all of a sudden things were coming together. And the Unitarians, when given, I think, the right doors and steps to follow, did amazing things with them. So, so that was really beautiful to see, and I did think that there was kind of a turning point there. And then I'm out of time, so thanks.
Just re-emphasizing the importance for us as organizers to, as much as possible, move away from just being critics to actually being leaders, and particularly amongst white folks in anti-racist work. And I think for any folks that are working with privileged sectors, to not just critique what those who are in privileged sectors aren't doing, but to actively create opportunities for them to do things that are going to demonstrate anti-racist values, whether it's with men with anti-sexist values, but to create opportunities, not just critiques of what people aren't doing. And so that's one of the things I'm going to be focusing on is mass direct action. And so we got our first one over here. What is mass direct action that we keep talking about? And so what we're talking about is nonviolent mass direct action is changing what is politically possible by building grassroots social, cultural, economic, and political power through directly challenging injustice and taking action that practices values of liberation. And so talking about the nonviolent direct action that happened in Phoenix, it was about directly challenging Sheriff Joe Arpaio, challenging the racist status quo, but also doing it in a way that was expressing collective power, building multiracial alliances, and putting forward a vision of dignity. And so in organizing around Arizona, one of the things that Catalyst quickly was realizing, and a lot of organizers were telling us this, is that there's been a lot of myths around how mass direct action happened. And so an organizer down in Los Angeles, Garrett Ruiz, an immigrant rights organizer who had been involved in the global justice movement, mass mobilizations, talked about not only is SB 1070 a fight for the future of our country around immigrant rights, it's also an opportunity to reimagine political organizing on the left to reinvigorate grassroots direct action. And so the first things we need to do in Arizona and in many places in this country is deal with the myths of Seattle. The myths of Seattle are that you set a date, you put out a call, you make a website, and you list targets. That is it. You are then therefore anonymous as everyone else is anonymous. The organizing is secret, which in practice means that there is no organizing. It's uncoordinated. It's spontaneous. Again, thinking that the magic that happened in Seattle came from the mystery of how it happened. So part of what we were talking about was what are the lessons from Seattle, and then what are the lessons from Arizona. That direct action organizing is powerful when it's connected and rooted to long-term organizing in communities. So whether it's the labor movement, the environmental movement, the student movement in Seattle, or it's the barrio committees, the immigrant rights organizing in working class communities in Phoenix. That as opposed to it being anonymous, that there are known organizations, leaders and organizers, and everyday folks coming together for specific actions and campaigns. And so it was a critical moment in Phoenix when Endelon and Puente had held a press conference announcing civil disobedience, announcing that they were going to be doing it. Because weeks before, many people were unclear who was actually calling for this. Were unclear if this was actually going to be a real thing happening, if there were real people behind it. And so again, putting forward a loud and proud story through the media, through our own understanding of what we're doing, of people coming together to challenge injustice and take collective action to make change. Putting forward a narrative of what we're doing that thousands of people can see themselves playing a role in. Ultimately, that millions of people can see themselves playing a role in. A story that's not just about an elite group of people doing direct action, but mass movements of people where folks can understand their roles and be supported in taking action. And we'll get to number 4. We need highly coordinated mass actions that include action teams, supporters, that have many, many roles to play, training support, that have work teams. And so again, lots of ways for people to participate and lots of ways that we actually need to be organized. And these different things can be coordinated together. And in Arizona, the magic is in the convergence of organizing and coordination that opens possibilities of resistance, both planned and organic. And so in Arizona, there were actions that had been planned, that people knew they were going to be playing specific roles, trying to shut down Sheriff Joe Arpaio's jail, which was successful. And then there were things that spontaneously emerged organically, meaning that you're actually planting seeds with a goal of something happening. And so being able to support people to be able to take other kinds of actions, blocking streets, standing up against the police, and so on.